Time with Captain Xavier. I am Chaylo Laurino, and I play Captain Xavier. And the story you have elected to hear this time is the story of Captain Xavier at the first two games of Afterworlds, where I actually went and I played a character named Captain Xavier, who turned out in canon to be the Captain Xavier from at least one of the games of WSU's HVZ. Their storyline jumped around, so it wasn't always the same character. But I always played a character named Captain Xavier because it was just easier that way. And at Afterworld, I played Captain Xavier, mercenary. He had been a member of the Black Knights, which was the military arm of an organization called Knight Industries, which was a corporation in-game. And he was at WSU when an outbreak came out. He got nuked when the containment failed, but he survived. He lost an arm, but got a robotic one installed. And, it was interesting. When I found out about Afterworlds through a friend in the pirate community, there was a group that go to the local pirate games called Enclave. They're a confederation of mercenaries, so it made great sense that we, being mercenaries, signed on with them, so they gave us camping site, or space, and we helped with their camp, with setup and tear down and all of that, and it was a lot of fun. And they mentioned that they did this post-apocalyptic thing, and we went, well, we do that, we do HVZ, it's very similar. And so that's how I got invited, and then I posted on the Afterworlds board, hey, I'm planning to go to Afterworlds, I want to be a mercenary, is there anybody looking to hire? Here are all my qualifications, and listed up, all the weapons, that, qualifications that I had, and training, and all of that. And one of the groups, by the name of Citadel, reached out to me, and offered to hire me for, Twix, because it's generally what I fight for, when I'm, it's just me, and nobody knows how, is he worth it? And so I got hired on by them, went, helped set up their camp, showed up with all my gear, showed off all my stuff. This was before my channel had even started, I think. I don't think I had actually started posting on my channel yet. So nobody knew who I was, nor should they have. And it was a lot of fun. And the first game was ridiculously hot. They knew it was going to be in the middle of, I think, August. And it was going to be unpleasantly hot. And so one of the main NPCs, one of the people running it, who was leader of a group called Convoy, had basically a bounty on water bottles. If you brought him an empty bottle of water to demonstrate that you had been drinking water, he would give you 1 unit of in-game currency. If you brought him a full bottle of water that he could then give to people to make sure that they drank water, he would give you even more in-game currency. So I brought several cases of water and brought them to him as though I were some sort of post-apocalyptic black market water merchant, and got a ridiculous amount of in-game currency very, very quickly. So I was able to get Ire into play as a biometric assault rifle, which meant that it couldn't be stolen from me, only I could use it. Also, I had to have a card for the fact that it's got a shotgun built into it. I actually, at one point, had my bazooka in play, but not as a bazooka, because the game at that time didn't have a rule for rockets, because they were still fairly new. They do not have rules for rockets, 2 years later. But I just put my Maverick cylinder on it and was using it as a shotgun, which shocked the heck out of people when you suddenly, poof, hit them with 6 rounds all at once, because nobody had anything that could do that yet. And now you're not allowed to have anything that fires more than 3 rounds at a time, because of people like me. Anyway, had a lot of fun. I have very little memory of that first game, honestly, as far as what the actual story arc was, other than it was, I believe, a fight between Knight Industries and Sigma Corporation, 2 of the evil corporations. There's also a Cerberus Corporation, but I don't think they were involved. But those 2 were trying to get the various factions in Afterworlds to fight each other. And it unfortunately never came up that I was, an ex-Black Knight, because the Knight Industries guy, I talked to him out of game and explained, this is what my character is. If your character saw me, you would recognize, if not my gear, and if not me, my gun. You would recognize Ire as being Knight Industries technology that only a Knight Industries Black Knight could carry, because it was biometric. Only a Black Knight could even use them. And he said, okay, well, if we run into each other, it'll come up. We never did end up running into each other until the very end, the big fight where we were trying to take them down, and I ended up helping kill him and looting his corpse, which felt good for my character, because my character was a bit bitter about the whole being left to die and nuked in Pullman. So that was the first game. At which point, now all my ties to Night Industries had supposedly been cut. We will see if that remains the case in future games, because I'd love to bring Captain Xavier back, either as an NPC, which would largely be preferable for me, but since he started out as a PC, he should probably stay as a PC, which would be interesting to have him as a one-off, show up, cause some trouble and leave. Though, yeah, I'd love for him to be, a boss of some kind, or an NPC major character, an arms dealer, or a mercenary that the players can hire or unlock, or something like that. It would be fun to have him show up with Tyr and just wreck house. But after that first game, kind of his ties were cut, and he stayed with Citadel, and that was the plan. Is that I had big plans to expand Citadel and all of that, which never did come to fruition because then I wasn't able to come after the second game that I went to. The second game I was at, it rained almost the entire time. It was raining when I set up my tent, which resulted in me having an indoor pool, which was not pleasant, but once I got the tent up, it wasn't too bad. It was damp. Luckily, I have a poncho in my gear and stayed fairly dry, but not the most. But I also had Gore-Tex lined boots, so my boots were completely waterproof and my feet stayed dry, which was the big point. It was also cold and unpleasant, and really gave you that whole post-apocalyptic feel. And at that point, I came back, and now my channel had started. Though I didn't have a whole lot of videos on it, didn't have a lot of subscribers, but a couple of people there had in fact seen it and were like, oh dear lord, you went easy on us if you've got that kind of weaponry. And so I brought some of the newer weaponry, the Drain Blaster shotguns, came to play. One of them, luckily, I never ended up trying to use in a fight because the tank on it had a leak, and if I'd tried to pull the trigger on somebody, nothing would have happened. Luckily, I brought two, and the other one worked just fine. So I had my Drain Blasters with me, which shocked a couple of baddies when you pull the trigger and suddenly hit them with 9 rounds and their character's just dead. Which is why you're not allowed to do that anymore. They prefer not to have instant kill anything. For obvious reasons. Nobody wants to deal with instant kill stuff unless it's a super big bad boss and you were warned beforehand. Which has happened. But they didn't know about that then. And I ran into a character who was skulking around our camp. I think he went into our camp without asking for permission. And so when I ran into him when I was on guard duty, I pointed a gun at him and we ended up in a standoff. And his character didn't like people who he perceived as being rude. Now, breaking into other people's camps on a night is, in my opinion, rude. And being a guard on guard duty, guarding would not be rude, but, logic does not need to apply to evil denizens of the waste. And so he wanted to kill me for most of the rest of the weekend, but it was dark and he didn't know who I was. So he was never able to actually find me, and Citadel refused to rat me out. They didn't end up bribing him. I would have just fought him and let him kill me, or possibly killed him. Probably not. He was one of the most powerful characters in the game, and I definitely wasn't, though if I'd gotten a sucker punch in with the shotgun, it could have been interesting. I might have been able to make a fight of it. So, yeah, that was fun. The storyline on that one was that there was... I don't remember all the details because I didn't pay attention much to the story arc. It was more of a, who do I need to kill? You want me to kill them? Okay, I'll kill them. Because I was a hired gun. But this storyline, there was some sort of a super powerful device that was making energy. It was, energy enough to power the whole waste, but also probably going to kill us all. And there was some nasty thing going on in one of a new hive had opened up, and there was nastiness going on with that. And so, one way or the other, somebody decided they needed to take this device into the hive and detonate it, and it would go nuclear, and it would destroy the hive, and everyone would be fine. No idea how they came to that conclusion, or what the whole plan with that was, or why it was there, or there were probably aliens. I think there were aliens involved. Anyway, we end up going into the bunker, and I'm looking at this whole situation going, how many ways are there in and out of this bunker? One way. One way in and out of the bunker. And this device is apparently calling the bad monsters to it? Okay, so we go into the bunker with the device. Every monster comes in out of us. We are trapped in the bunker with the monsters and the nuclear device. Does anybody else think this is a bad plan? Well, sure enough, super zombies started showing up that we couldn't keep dead. They kept getting back up again, and they could only be hurt by certain weapons. So, luckily, I had a lot of that ammo. I think they could only be hurt by green or above, higher level ammo. And yeah, they started pouring in. We started losing people left and right because there was no way out. And there was just always more of them coming. Finally, they got the device up and running, and we had like 15 seconds before it went nuclear, so I led a charge to try to get out, and me and 2 other people made it out. The Citadel medic and 1 other random guy. And then the thing went boom, and all the monsters died, and that left me and the medic and the other random guy standing there. Other random guy then kills our medic because he was from Raiders, I think, and they're bad guys. So I blew him away with the shotgun. Medic died, he died, and I was the last person alive. Pretty much everybody else died in the bunker. But it wasn't a permanent death, it was just 1 defeat, and so they all went to zombie camp. And so pretty much everybody in the game, except for the people who had been zombies when that went down, now became zombies for a little while. So it was me and a bunch of noobs who hadn't gone into the hole because they were too new to understand the whole big story arc. Everyone all comes together for the big push final battle thing that happens at pretty much every game. So they all lived. And then a bunch of people who'd been zombies ended up coming back. And then all of Citadel, the folks who had hired me, all of them dead. Except, so they're going, great, it's just me holding the fort. Lovely. But that was a lot of fun. I survived. They all then came back, and I think that was the game. So, yeah, I didn't get into a whole lot of fights. There were a couple of times. There was one particularly nasty monster that I ended up defeating. It was some weird super zombie thing with 2 huge guys guarding 1 little girl, or 1 little woman, and then a bunch of people who were the tentacles, as it were, and the groups of humans that were attacking kept focusing on the tentacles. And they'd shoot the tentacle, or they'd hit the tentacle with the sword, and the tentacle would go down, and then it would get back up again and after a couple of seconds and start fighting. And then it would go down, and it was immune to headshot, it was immune to double tap. There was just no way to ever actually permanently kill them. I walked up, watched this for a couple of minutes as they're, shooting all of the things that are calling immune, and this is immune, and that is immune. Saw that nobody was hitting the girl in the middle, pulled out my auto strife, shot her a couple of times. She went down and the whole zombie died, or the whole creature died. Like, lovely, I'm taking the XP. So I had a lot of fun the first couple of Afterworlds. That was Captain Xavier's first 2 games at Afterworlds. There may be more in the future, probably, hoping for it. So the stories for next time. The runner-up this time was, again, how a young deaf boy taught Captain Xavier, and thus the entire Empire of Adria, the meaning of chivalry, will be one of the options. The Scots Raid War, which was the 3rd war that Captain Xavier was in. And for the final option, the early days of Captain Xavier and how he once nearly took the Imperial Estates hostage will be the 3rd option. So the link to the survey will be down in the description. Vote on which one of those you want to hear, and that's what we will talk about in December. I hope you enjoyed the story. Thank you guys for watching.